The movie begins at a bar where Dave and his wife Nicola are having fun singing karaoke in front of a large crowd. The people at the bar cheer him on and sing along as Dave performs with passion. Dave Fishwick is a successful van salesman and a self-made millionaire from Burnley, a town in Britain. He is happily married and well known for doing good deeds for his community. He sells minibuses and sometimes lends money to help local businesses. Later, when the bar is almost empty, a local businessman named Eric approaches Dave.
Couldn't have done it without you though, mate. Yeah, I thought you could have gone to the difference for me. Maybe you should be. One that helps out the locals.
This idea stays in Dave's mind. As he leaves the bar with Nicola, he shares the thought with her. Nicola expresses concern because Dave never went to a fancy university, but she jokes that she would be his first customer. Dave feels supported and starts believing in the idea. Next, Dave decides to get legal advice. He contacts Bentham and Green Solicitors, where a young lawyer named Hugh Stockwell is assigned to help him. Hugh is struggling to make progress in his career and often works with rich investment bankers. He thinks the idea of a regular man opening a bank is ridiculous, but he has no choice but to accept the offer.
Beggars can't be choosers.
Then Hugh drives to Burnley while practicing the local accent in his car. When he arrives and asks a stranger for directions, he can't understand a single word. He quickly realizes that surviving a day in Burnley might be harder than he thought. Hugh finally reaches Dave's office and meets him. Dave explains how he started his business by selling vans.
I've got 7 of these dealerships across Lancashire and Yorkshire, and a couple of years back, the country were in recession, and my customers were having problems making payments. Now we're making loans to families and small businesses in the local area.
Because banks were not helping people during the crisis. Although Hugh feels uncomfortable listening to Dave criticize the banking system, he stays polite and agrees to look at the hundreds of loan files. Dave even promised him that his profits would all go to charities if his bank ever made one. Dave then asks him to meet again the next day to discuss the matter further, and Hugh leaves frustrated because he doesn't want to spend the night in Burnley. Then things get worse for Hugh. He finds his car has a flat tire. With little experience, he tries to fix it, but accidentally drops a tool and hurts his toe. At the clinic, Hugh's pain becomes unbearable as he waits in the reception area for what feels like forever. He begs the nurse, saying he has a private healthcare plan, but the nurse only laughs. Dr. Alexandra mocks him and says that healthcare is a basic human right for everyone. Dr. Alexandra is a young doctor who graduated from Cambridge. She now works at the local clinic in Burnley. She is working on a new project to start a walk-in clinic that reduces pressure on hospitals and general practitioners. Her goal is to make sure patients are treated as soon as they arrive. She manages to get support from the National Health Service, but the local council does not agree and blocks the plan. The next day, Hugh meets with Dave again, and they visit several people Dave has helped with loans. Dave shows Hugh the many successful businesses across town who all took a loan from him at some point. He tries to prove why opening a community bank would be helpful for Burnley. As they meet more people, Hugh becomes more confused and stressed as he does not know what to do about Dave's dream. But little by little, Hugh starts to see the good in Dave and how much the community respects him. After a long day, they go to a coffee shop and meet with Dr. Alexandra, who turns out to be Dave's niece. Alexandra then tells them about the council's refusal to support her clinic project, and now she is counting on the possibility of the Bank of Dave to help fund it. After Alexandra leaves, Dave lays out many files on the table. These files are from startup businesses that people have asked him to support.
It's not just jobs. It's about the quality of life for a whole community. It's should the Bank of Dave exist.
Yes, it should.
Dave then says,
File the necessary paperwork with the Finance Commission Board. I know they're going to turn me down, but I want them to tell me why.
he wants them to admit publicly why he is not allowed to open a bank while the same people who lost billions during the recession are still trusted to run one. Dave says he is not afraid of losing. He just wants the truth to come out to the public. Seeing his determination, Hugh agrees to help. Dave then invites Hugh to a karaoke night with friends to celebrate, and although Hugh begins to say no, Dave mentions that Alexandra will be there, which quickly changes Hugh's mind. Later that night, Dave, Nicola, Hugh, and Eric enjoy a fun time at the bar and are joined by Maureen, an old friend. Nicola introduces Maureen as the first person to ever receive a loan from Dave many years ago. Maureen tells Hugh that she borrowed the money to give her late husband, who she was married to for 38 years, a proper funeral, as she had no savings at the time, and says Dave gave her dignity during a very hard moment in her life. On stage, when it is time for the next song, the host calls Hugh to sing. At first, Hugh refuses strongly, but the crowd cheers and claps for him, shouting his name and encouraging him to go up. Finally, he gives in and steps onto the stage. He begins to sing the lyrics, although he barely knows the words, but the crowd helps him along. Then Alexandra enters the club, and Hugh becomes even more nervous. His tongue gets twisted, but by the end of the song, he starts to enjoy it. After finishing, he thanks Dave and steps off the stage, and the group spends the rest of the night having fun together. The next morning, Dave takes Hugh to the train station so he can return to London. When Hugh gets back to his office, he meets with his boss, Clarence.
But they are going to have to justify why.
Clarence likes the idea and advises him to speak with Oscar, a good friend who knows a lot about the Financial Regulation Board. Next, Hugh meets Oscar, who gives him the data he needs along with some insight about his own marriage. Later that day, while walking past a bar, Hugh sees his ex-girlfriend Hen sitting alone. She is also a lawyer and invites Hugh to join her for a drink because her friend canceled on her. Hugh hesitates but agrees to have one drink to be polite. Hen then starts to talk about her boyfriend who recently left her, and suddenly she starts crying because her boyfriend is also her boss. She then drinks several glasses and becomes very drunk. Hugh helps her out of the bar and into a taxi. She tries to kiss him, but he gently stops her. Then she begs him to take her to his place, and Hugh agrees. The next morning, Hen wakes up in Hugh's bed and realizes he slept on the couch. While looking around the room for medicine, she opens the drawer of his nightstand and finds documents. When she reads them, she sees the files about Dave's application to start a new bank. Curious, she invites Hugh to dinner that night, and he agrees. At the office, Clarence arranges a meeting for Hugh with Sir Charles, a former member of the Financial Regulation Board. Clarence is very confident that if their case goes public, they sure are going to win because everybody hates bankers.
See, in the rest of the economy, we have large companies and small companies.
And how it could help the local community. Sir Charles says,
to make sure that people's hard-earned money is entrusted to the...
You'd have to admit they've been doing a pretty piss-poor job, haven't they?
which annoys Sir Charles. Still, Hugh thanks him and stands up to leave.
My client is the type of chap people in his community can trust.
And there should be no problem moving forward, leaving Sir Charles without a clear response. Later, Hugh finishes the paperwork necessary to form a case for the Bank of Dave and sends it to Dave, who loves everything. At dinner, Hen starts asking Hugh more questions about his recent work, and when she learns about his meeting with Sir Charles, her interest grows. Hugh decides to trust her and tells her everything about the case, but he does not know that she has other plans. The next morning, Hugh brings the bank application to the Financial Regulation Board's office. As he hands in the paperwork, everyone he meets reacts with disbelief. Some mock him, while others are simply amazed. Later, Mr. Giles, one of the boards of the Financial Regulation Board, receives a call from Sir Charles about Hugh's recent work and the bank application. Sir Charles tells him that he wants no immediate action taken as everything is under control and nothing serious will happen. After ending the call, Sir Charles calls Hen and asks her to send him the evidence she found. In return, he promises to give her the promotion she has been asking for. This reveals that Hen was planning to betray Hugh from the beginning. That night, while Dave is working late in his office, the police arrive and arrest him. Alexandra immediately calls Hugh, who begins to investigate the files with Clarence and discovers one document, Dave's first loan to Maureen. This loan is the problem. Dave had a license to lend money for van or minibus purchases, but this particular loan was used to pay for a funeral. That one act is now being used to charge him with a crime, and if he is convicted, he will be banned from owning or running any financial institution, which will destroy the future of the Bank of Dave. Hugh drives to Burnley as fast as he can and meets with Dave, who left on bail, and his family, including Alexandra. They all sit down to figure out what they can do. Hugh explains that legally, there is nothing they can do to fight the charge, as no jury or judge would likely find Dave not guilty based on the technical rule he broke. But then Hugh says there might still be a way. If they can prove that the charges were made with bad intentions, not just to punish Dave, but to hurt the whole community, they may be able to change the outcome. Alexandra wants to help, so she offers to talk to her friend at the police station and also reach out to her sister, who is a reporter, to find out how this information was leaked. The next day at Dave's office, as Hugh prepares for the court hearing, Dave calls him over to meet someone. It is Rick, a music promoter who has managed big bands like Def Leppard. Hugh is thrilled because he is a big fan and used to be passionate about music as a kid. Rick tells them that his son Jake now works with another band called the Goa Express, and he has come to buy a new van because his son wrecked the last one. As the office phone rings, Hugh steps away, leaving Dave and Rick to talk. Meanwhile, Alexandra meets her friend at the police station.
London sent a team up, and when we heard, we thought they must have the wires crossed.
Her friend cannot give her more details, but the fact that the team came from London raises concerns. Alexandra also meets her sister, the reporter. They catch up about their personal lives, and then Alexandra hints that she may have a big story for her to investigate next. Back in London, Hugh talks to Clarence over the phone. He tells him that he is not feeling confident enough to represent Dave in court, but Clarence responds with encouragement and gives him the push he needs. He reminds Hugh of his strengths and tells him that now is the time to believe in himself. On the day of the hearing, Dave and Nicola speak to the reporters gathered outside the courthouse and say they are hopeful and optimistic about how the court will handle the case today. Inside the courtroom, the judges are first confused and question why a loan sharking case is not being handled in the Crown Court, and soon the prosecutor and Hugh begin presenting their arguments. The prosecutor says that even if Dave does not fit the usual profile of a loan shark, he still broke the law and must face the consequences. Hugh does not deny that a technical violation happened. However, he asks the court to dismiss the case and argues that the complaint, the charge, and the entire prosecution were brought forward with malicious intent. Hugh explains that this case is not just about Dave, it is also an attack on the people of Burnley. His words make the judges pause and think. Hugh continues speaking, saying that the Financial Regulation Board is using the court to stop Dave from opening a community bank, and he pleads with the court to consider the evidence before making any decisions. Next, Maureen is brought in as a witness.
Dave said he were happy to pay for everything.
She becomes emotional and starts to cry.
There wasn't a single day that the Run and I weren't together.
She says she never accepts charity, so she asked Dave to make it a loan instead of a gift. Dave agreed and later donated the money she repaid to a homeless shelter. Maureen tells the court that Dave acted out of kindness and has always been a good man. Hugh continues by telling the court that there are other reasons behind the charges. He points out that a police team from London was sent directly to arrest Dave, which suggests that something unusual is going on. He then presents dozens of loan files as evidence. These files show how Dave helped create over 150 jobs through his support of local businesses. Hugh says the Financial Regulation Board is not doing its real job. Instead, they are using this small local court as a tool in a larger plan, and he adds that they are avoiding public blame and trying not to look like the bad guys, but their actions tell a different story. After hearing this, the judges decide they need to review the documents, so they suspend the court session until after lunch. During the break, Alexandra talks with Hugh. She thanks him for everything he has done so far and tells him she has learned something important.
My contact in Bolton Police is here, and she got a name. Sir Charles Denby.
Oh, no, you're kidding me.
Especially because he did not reveal much during their meeting a few weeks earlier. Hugh begins to think hard and form a plan, and Alexandra teases him gently.
You're doing that brow furrowing
Am I?
thing. Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
The time arrives for the court to resume. The judges begin by thanking Dave for everything he has done for the community. Then they ask Hugh if he has any proof that the Financial Regulation Board is involved in the case. Sadly, Hugh does not have any direct proof. As the judge is about to close the case, Hugh speaks up. He suggests that the prosecution may already have the answer and says that any experienced lawyer would know where the complaint originally came from. The prosecutor replies that the complaint was anonymous. Hugh does not back down. He warns the prosecution that if they are lying in court, it counts as perjury, which is punishable by law. After seeing that the prosecutor will not flinch,
As my next witness, I'd like to call a senior officer from the Bolton Police Force. The original complaint came from the office of Sir Charles.
Hugh accuses the prosecution of hiding this fact, and at that moment, the prosecutor admits that he was told to keep Sir Charles's name out of the case. This revelation angers the judges, and they dismiss the case immediately. This marks a big victory for both Dave and Hugh, and everyone walks out of the courthouse cheering and celebrating, but Hugh knows that this is just a small battle won in the Great War to come. That night, they all gather at the karaoke bar to celebrate. Alexandra and her sister begin to talk about Hugh, and her sister teases her and says she should give Hugh a chance. Hugh receives praise from everyone, including Maureen. Dave then takes the stage and sings for the rest of the night. The next morning, after the celebration and a hangover, Dave makes breakfast in the kitchen. Hugh bumps into Alexandra as she steps out of the shower, and they both quickly turn away, embarrassed. Dave tells Hugh that Rick's son has a show that night and invites him to go, and Hugh and Alexandra decide to attend together. Meanwhile, at a meeting between the Financial Regulation Board, they discuss how Hugh outsmarted them in court and wonder what to do next. Giles proposes that they take control of the situation and reminds them that the board still sets the rules and can manage the outcome in the long run. Later, Hugh and Alexandra walk together to the concert. Hugh talks about how he feels more connected to the town now. They enjoy the live music and spend time with Rick. Hugh watches Alexandra with admiration as she dances and laughs, and she keeps teasing him about being a huge Def Leppard fan. After the show, Hugh walks Alexandra to her house, and as they step out of the cab, she invites him in for a cup of coffee. The next morning, Hugh wakes up on Alexandra's couch and receives a phone call from Clarence. There is a meeting scheduled at the Financial Regulation Board the next day to discuss the Bank of Dave. Hugh invites Alexandra to come with him, but she has to work, so she leaves for her shift while Hugh stays behind on the sofa. The next day, Dave and Hugh arrive at the meeting with the Financial Regulation Board.
And we're unanimous. The answer is yes. Dave will be subject to the same rules as every other bank in the country.
This means they must have a working IT system to track all transactions, submit monthly audited reports.
£12 million, which we'd need deposited in 90 days.
This shocks Dave, and as they leave the meeting, he tells Hugh that he will be at least halfway short of the total amount even if he gets a loan for everything he got. Besides, getting a loan from another bank is not an option because no financial institution wants to fund a potential competitor. However, Dave remains helpful and goes back to Burnley, telling Hugh that his part is completed for now. Next, Hugh tries to move on, but the issue stays on his mind. Meanwhile, he receives praise from all directions and is offered a new job by a capital investment firm, a role that comes with a six-figure paycheck. However, the job requires full exclusivity, which means Hugh must drop all other work, including the Bank of Dave. Clarence tells him that his job for Dave is finished and that this is a once-in-a-lifetime chance, warning that if Hugh turns it down, getting another opportunity like this will be nearly impossible. That night, Hugh returns home, pours himself a glass of wine, and tries to think clearly. He picks up the phone to call Alexandra, but it goes straight to voicemail, and he leaves a short message asking her to call him back. Feeling frustrated, he opens up his case files and suddenly realizes something important. Hen must have stolen the data during the night she stayed over. The next morning, Hugh goes straight to her office. When confronted, Hen admits it, saying,
I saw an opportunity and I took it. Well, how do you think you got such a high-paying gig at Neo Clarity?
will be a benefit for him since it was all part of a plan.
He and Sir Charles wanted you out of the picture, while the Bank of Dave faded into obscurity.
Hugh storms out of her office as she tells him the rich will always buy their way out. Later, Hugh attends a meeting at Neo Clarity, his new job offer, but he finds it hard to focus as his mind keeps drifting back to Burnley. That night, he receives a message about Maureen's death and decides to drive back. At the church, he sits quietly at the back while Dave delivers a heartfelt speech. Maureen passed away from cancer, which is a surprise for everyone.
Maureen were a nurse for 25 years.
She were a real pillar of the community.
Back at the house, Hugh and Alexandra talk. She apologizes for not calling him back and explains that she is afraid about how they could make a relationship work with the distance between them. But soon, Dave joins them, and Hugh asks him how the fundraising is going. Dave tells him that even after mortgaging everything he owns and collecting help from everyone he knows, he is still £4 million short. He says he no longer believes the Bank of Dave is possible. When Hugh begins to offer ideas to raise the money, Dave gently stops him and says this is not the time or place to talk about that. As Hugh walks back to his car, he cannot stop thinking about Dave. He starts to reflect on everything he has experienced in this small town, the people, the family, and especially Alexandra. And these memories push him to come up with a plan. Hugh then makes a phone call to Rick and immediately runs back to Dave's house to tell him that they should not give up. He convinces Dave to fight back and suggests organizing a concert to raise the remaining money. He already spoke with Rick and hopes to convince Def Leppard to perform. Dave is unsure as he still believes the bank cannot happen, but Hugh keeps pushing, asking him to at least consider the possibility. The next morning, Dave is still thinking about the plan. Eventually, he agrees and comes up with an even better idea.
You can put 100 quid on deposit at Bank of Dave. In 6 months, you take it out plus interest. The concert's still free.
Even if the bank does not succeed,
Then you get your 100 quid back.
and the concert remains free. Next, Hugh goes to Alexandra's workplace and asks her for help. He needs her sister, the reporter, to promote the concert and spread the word. Hugh and Dave begin preparing everything and work non-stop to make the concert happen within 1 week. Dave appears on television and quickly becomes a national headline. News spreads fast, and the concert gains massive attention. More people hear about it and plan to attend. Hugh tries to get the Financial Regulation Board to give them more time for the deposit, but they still refuse. Despite that, support keeps growing. Even the football team coach joins in by making deposits, bringing even more publicity to the cause. On the day of the concert, thousands of people show up and the band performs in front of a massive, excited crowd. Backstage, Dave and Nicola count the money and wait nervously to reach the target. Hugh checks in on them, but Nicola still looks worried because the goal is close, but not confirmed. Hugh steps outside to take a phone call from Clarence, who has come to the concert and wants to meet him. As Hugh walks through the crowd to find him, he runs into Alexandra, who tells him that she is proud of everything they have achieved together, even if they fail to achieve their goal. Right after that, Hugh rushes off to find Clarence and asks him for a favor. Dave feels disappointed. The money raised is close but not enough to meet the target, but there is still time. Rick calls him up to the stage, and Dave leaves the room to see the band, feeling unsure, while Nicola stays behind. As Rick passes by, Hugh runs into him and quickly heads straight to Nicola to tell her some news. Rick introduces Def Leppard on stage, and the crowd goes wild with excitement. Alexandra and Hugh also enjoy the performance from backstage. Suddenly, Nicola runs to Dave with a big smile on her face and tells him the good news that they reached the target. Dave is overjoyed, and they both celebrate with tears and laughter. Next, Rick brings Dave to the stage. Dave thanks the crowd and the entire community for believing in him, and he promises to run the bank in a better way, one that truly serves the people. The crowd cheers loudly, and the band invites Dave to sing with them, and he happily joins in. Meanwhile, Alexandra hurries back to the backstage room to find the records and reads that Hugh made the last donations to make this possible. Soon, TV channels across the country report on the concert and announce that the funds have been raised to open the first new bank in over 150 years. As Hugh heads out, Alexandra catches up with him and asks what he did, because they were still £1 million short until he stepped in.
I borrowed the money off Clarence and put my flat up as collateral. That's fine though, property's a lot cheaper in Burnley. I think it is, anyway.
Alexandra laughs, thinking he is joking.
No one in their right mind moves from Primrose Hill to Burnley.
But Hugh looks her in the eyes and tells her the truth.
They have recklessly strong feelings about someone.
Alexandra is speechless, so she kisses him. Backstage, all their friends gather to celebrate. They open a bottle of champagne and cheer, and Dave takes a moment to look around and soak it all in. His dream has finally come true as he is really going to open a bank. Dave didn't have a big title or a powerful name. What he had was heart, honesty, and a deep belief in his community. He stood up for the people ignored by the system. When others tried to shut him down, he responded with hope, unity, and action. In the end, it wasn't money or power that won. It was trust, built through kindness and a simple promise to do things better. Dave didn't just open a bank. He proved that one person, with the support of many, can still change everything. Later, a full investigation into the case leads to Hen and Giles being fired for their roles in the scheme. Meanwhile, the Bank of Dave officially opens and begins its operation by lending money to Alexandra to open Lancashire's first free walk-in clinic. The movie ends by showing that the real-life Dave is still running the bank in Burnley. His efforts have helped many businesses and families, and all profits continue to go to local charities.